So I wanted to talk today about some of the things that I learned while being out in the woods this last, I guess it was almost 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, and kind of some of the takeaways that I had. I think it's really important to ensure that our successes are not predicated only on killing an animal, especially like this is my second year archery, bow hunting. This is my third year hunting overall. I think it's really important that we find other ways, other things that are successes. And that's kind of what I wanted to focus on. That's what I wanted to talk about. My top 5 successes that I had from this hunt, and the top 5 takeaways that I had. And what better way to do that than while shooting some arrows, right? So let's get after it. So to kick us off, number 1, I was into elk pretty much every day. Let me rephrase that. I was into elk sign every day. I knew they were around. I was just having a hard time finding them. I knew they were around. It was hot. And so they weren't herded up like I was hoping for. When we look at like early season behaviors, they were very early season. And so while I was around elk, I could see their sign. I didn't see a lot of actual elk, which was actually kind of different for me than what I had experienced last year. Now, the second thing was, while I wasn't into elk every day, and let's define what into elk means. I think I heard Dan state and define being into elk as being within 100 yards of elk. Now, I wasn't knowingly within 150 yards of or 100 yards of elk every day. That said, I on the first day that I was there, first full day that I was there, I found a bull across a fairly open field, and put a stock on him. I closed the distance from 700 yards to 150. While 150 is still not very close, I was really proud of that. Doing that across an open field, trying to make a play, trying to get the wind right. All things that I really haven't done before to that extent. I've stalked animals before, deer primarily, but a bull that would sit there and watch me, and I would freeze, and then he would go back to feeding, and I would move closer, was something that was pretty new, and so I was really proud of that. That would be my second thing, that I actually got a chance to see a bull, stalk a bull, and really try and make that play, try and make something happen. So number three was, this was the first year that I actually spent a night out in the elk woods solo by myself, away from my vehicle. I have been close to the vehicle plenty of times before that and slept outside with other people. This was the first time by myself. For it, I got woken up by wolves at 5 a.m., so that was not, I don't know, it wasn't quite so fun, and probably changed elk behavior for that day. But nonetheless, getting out, doing something that I've never done before really, was good, was really valuable to me. So number 4 was getting out and testing gear, right? Um, we make this plan all year round. We look to, we upgrade, we make upgrades, we change things. And so actually seeing some of that gear in use, actually getting to put it to use um, was really valuable. And I was um, really glad to have that experience, as well as just, you know, being out there and experiencing the wild, I guess, being out there experiencing the mountains was really valuable. So that was number 4, getting the gear out, actually putting it through its paces, all the gear, hunting animals, which is just different than hiking and all the things throughout the rest of the year. 50 yards, not too shabby. So number 5 in the success category was the amount of hiking that I did throughout this trip. Um, I don't know what my average was, but my lowest day hiking, I believe, was 7 miles, and my highest was almost 9. I would imagine the average was somewhere around 7.5 or so. Most days were around that 8-mile mark, if I remember correctly. And so I was really proud of that. From last year, doing more sitting, being a little bit closer to that 4 to 6. Like I definitely got in. I think I got in one 8-mile day last year. 2,000 miles of elevation in that day, and I definitely got that in this time as well. Overall, more elevation throughout each day, and definitely, uh, definitely just more miles hiked each day. Now, what were my takeaways? Um, so quick story, I guess. The number one takeaway is related to the story. The last day, I came up on some mule deer. They saw me, but I was able to sneak up on to them. And these were 2 mule deer does, I should say. And does are legal in the unit that I was hunting. Um, and one of them had kind of watched me, so I was at 15 yards. One of them had kind of watched me, but was feeding, and I drew back. She looked up at me. She was standing there. She was slightly quartering to, not slightly. She was quartering to, and I had a fixed blade on, so I took that shot. I spent 6 hours looking for that deer. I felt like the shot was good. Um, I tried to tuck it in as close to the shoulder blade as I could, but I was not able to find the deer. I was not able to find my arrow. I did a lot of tracking. Like I said, tracked her for six. Well, not tracked her for 6 hours, but went over, tracked in that area for 6 hours. Did my best to grid the area. Did my best to follow the tracks down. Ultimately, she got into a kind of more boggy type area, and I lost the tracks from there. There wasn't a ton of blood trail. And so my first takeaway is, man, I'm not taking that quartering 2 shot again. At least for a while. I just think that there's too much that can go wrong. Yeah, it just, I figured that it's a smaller animal, a deer being a deer, a doe. It was going to be a fine shot, and in my mind, I was mistaken. Now I know that we all make mistakes, and we all make choices. I don't even know that it was a mistake. This is, to me, it's more of a learning experience. Um, there's no reason that my arrows should have been stopped by a shoulder blade or anything like that. And so my belief is that just with a poor blood trail and with as much deadfall and just junk on the ground as there was, she was able to get behind, tuck herself into something that I just was not able to see. I already mentioned the wolves, and plenty of other predators in this area, coyotes, bears. Yeah, and so like she's not going to go to waste, but it was still a bummer. Yeah, she's not going to go to waste, but it was still a bummer for her not to be in my freezer rather than feeding the wildlife, who, in my opinion, didn't work as hard for her. So I said I had three things. That was number one. I'm not taking a quartering two shot for a while at least. Number two was the weight of my pack, and partially my food was just too much. I found myself having plenty of food each day. I finished it pretty much every day. I do make a point to do that. I came off after 5 days, really no lost weight or anything like that. And I just felt like, at least for a 5-day hunt, I could have probably cut it a little bit closer. And so I do have another hunt coming back up. I'm going out again in a week. And I'm going to be making adjustments to that. As part of that. So like even just cutting off, it was my daily food was 2.5 pounds. Even cutting out, I think it was like 400 calories allowed me to drop that pack weight or allowed me to drop the daily food to like 2.1, way better. Just even over 5 days. Two, I didn't have to carry all 5 days of food. I did this last trip. I didn't have to do that. I was coming back to the truck here and there. I should have planned a little bit better about which days I was coming back and which not. But I wanted to kind of have that sense of like, if I felt like I needed to, I could sleep where I was. With that, there were some things in the pack that just didn't really need to be there. And that I probably could have gotten away. I know I could have gotten away with them, and they won't be there this next time. An example of those would be, you watch my packing list, Crocs. I've had those in there. The Crocs are like 1.5 pounds. I'm going to be dumping those for this next time. None of the streams where I'm at, none of the rivers are so deep right now that I can't just wade across them with my shoes. So I'm going to be doing that. Backup release, I'm going to actually end up leaving this at the truck. I'm never more than 3 miles from the truck, if even that. And that tends to be my like radius that I plan for. So there's just really not like, I can make that hike back if something really went wrong with this release or I lost it. And there's a few other things like that that I probably that I will be making choices for. Something that needs to get added to the pack is Advil. I had a few baby aspirin, but no Advil. My knee started bothering me on day 4 and 5. I really believe that was IT band related. I didn't have enough to take with me. And so I had to get it from the car, which was fine, but just like, I should at least have a day's worth or so. So gear and kind of making some of those adjustments, food, making some of those adjustments, even somewhat water, making some of those adjustments. Those were all things that, that were a realization. The third thing is that I am still not where I want to be. Not where I want to be for being out in the mountains. I went into season right around 260. My goal had been 240. So that actually, I was actually at 256. My goal had been 240. My backup goal was 246, which would have been the 70 pounds lost since January. I didn't quite make that. I hit 60 pounds. But ultimately, like, even if I had lost another 10 pounds, what's rattling on here? Oh, maybe it's this other field point. Even if I had lost another 10 pounds, that would not have put me where I want to be in the mountains. I still felt like my knee was somewhat because of my physical fitness. And this is not only just weight, this is like everything. And so even with that, like, I plan to not get complacent. And to continue to stay on the grind. My current goal right now is to get down to 220 and then reevaluate from there. Another 30 pounds that's that's significant. That's almost my entire pack weight. So we'll see where we end up after that. But for right now, I know that that's the goal, and then to kind of retest where I am, at that point. So I have the advantage of being able to go out again. I'm getting ready to head back out here, and I think that that's it's an advantage to me to be able to take what I learned from that first trip and kind of apply it to the next one. But what I don't want to lose sight of is the learnings that I took away from this first time, and just turning around and reapplying them without kind of capturing them. Like I said, success to me is not just about taking home an animal. And honestly, I came really close to doing that. I was really, really bummed. But there are learnings, there are takeaways from each one of these things, um, and the successes aren't necessarily just determined by what happens out there, and whether or not you come home with some meat for the freezer, or some antlers. Um, I'm really proud of the strides that I made this year. I think that there's a lot for me to learn as a hunter, and maybe some of those things will be more clear next year, or more able to be make the list, make higher on the list. Some of them I don't even know what I did wrong necessarily. I'm still learning, still making assumptions in some of these stocks and things like that I'm going on, and where the bull just ends up walking away or whatever. And even just the idea of trying to find animals when it was as hot as it was, understanding the behavior when that happens. These are all things that I'm still learning. But it's really important to take the successes that we did have, identify those to me, find the takeaways that we had, identify those, kind of put them down on paper or whatever, put them down in a place that you can look at and kind of remember. And then figure out how we make some of those changes. One of those being I know for a fact that I will find ways next year to be testing myself earlier than the season. I'm not going to be waiting till August or September to be figuring out if I'm happy with where my fitness is. I have some ideas for that. Maybe I'll talk about those on another video. But ultimately, you just finished. You likely just finished your season as well. Have gone out on some trips. Maybe you're not done either. I'm not quite sure when this video is coming out yet. So maybe season's not even over. Shoot, and then there's going to be rifle seasons to go too. But ultimately, from the trips that you've taken, what have you learned? What have you found this year? What are the ways that you can grow? What are the successes? What are the takeaways? I'd love to hear them. I'd love to hear what you're thinking, what you're going through as well. And yeah, happy to share, and hope you were able to take something away from this. As always, if you like the content, interacting with it in any way is so appreciated. Like, comments. I love to just be able to read what you're thinking and stuff like that. So like, comment, subscribe. Um, comments. I love the comments. So please add anything that you're thinking. We'd love to hear it. Catch you next time. Stay relentless.